Hi again, everyone, and welcome again to Mad About Madera. Um, Interestingly enough, I'm not wearing my Madeiran hat today, so I've decided to just go ahead and do another video. A little quick, well, it might not be quick actually. Just decided to just do another video here because a thought came to mind, and I said, you know what? While my little toddler is down, my wife is busy doing her hair. I said, you know what? Let me just jump in and just do a video in the interim, real quick. I say quick. It might not be quick because this video is going to be somewhat interesting and a little bit off from. It's still part of the theme of the channel, but it's going to be something that I just want to address. Um, Part of the reason why I want to address it was a friend of mine on Facebook put up a topic, and she was saying that she was not aware of these islands known as Sao Tome and Principe. I think that's how you pronounce it, off the western coast of Africa. She realized that they were, once upon a time, under the Portuguese flag, colonies of Portugal. And she said she loves it, it's beautiful. She had never heard about it before. So then it occurred to me, in relation to Madeira, in relation to, well, Portugal, a lot of people know about Portugal, know where it is. But in relation to Madeira, I was like, well, if she doesn't know about those islands, she may not really know much about Madeira either. So it prompted a thought in my mind, and I mentioned it in my first video. Keep in mind that I have not marketed this video to a lot of my friends who look like me. Okay? Guess you know what that means. So I have not marketed to them as yet. We made a decision that we're going to probably do that when we finally make it to Madeira. I'll probably put up videos and put up the videos in other places and say, hey, listen, this is our life in Madeira. This is how it looks. This is what's going on. I prefer to do it that way. But in the meantime, for right now, most of the people who are probably seeing our videos are people who are Madeiran, people who are Portuguese, well, of course, same country, and people who are Madeirans or people who are Portuguese. Let me just not differentiate here. People who are Portuguese who may live abroad, and they happen to come from Madeira or are familiar with Madeira, and they just are interested in it. The other group of people who are probably seeing this video or our videos are Americans, perhaps a few Europeans, but Americans who are becoming extremely curious about a place like Portugal as a new destination that they can move to, retirement, digital nomads, and so forth. So they're probably coming across these videos. But the group of people who are probably not seeing our videos or many of the other videos relating to Madeira are people that look like me, and there are a variety of reasons why that is going on. So what I decided to do, I said, you know what, even though I'm not marketing it to people that look like me right now, I am sure there's some bored person or someone who may have heard about an island known as Madeira, someone who looks like me, they're professional, they have professional jobs, and somehow they've been hearing about this place called Madera and digital nomads, and they're probably like, let me take a look into that to see what this is really all about. And now they're probably finding out about such a place. I'm sure they're not in great numbers, but they're finding out about such a place. The other thing is this. I have watched tons of videos in Madeira because I just love the place, and as you know from the first video, I have ancestral ties to the island, and my wife also has ancestral ties to the island. So I've watched a bunch of videos, and in watching all of the videos about Madeira, just going through, what you're hardly going to see, which I don't think I've seen, are any videos featuring or showing people like us speaking about Madeira. I think there may be a few. And I think one of them that I saw, I think this young lady was from Africa. Not surprising, since Africa is in close proximity to Madeira. I think I may have seen another one somewhere. So As I mentioned in one of my videos prior, when my wife and I went to Madeira and we came back and we were telling people about Madeira, the first thing was, Madeira, where is that? And I had to explain Madeira is an island off the coast of Portugal. It's actually under the Portuguese flag. I had to give them an example, like think of it like being like Hawaii is an island off the coast of the United States, well off the coast of the United States, but it's part of the United States. Or for those people who are from the Virgin Islands like me, the Virgin Islands being under the US flag, even though we're not a state, I will go ahead and tell them, well, think of it like this. The Virgin Islands are 1,200 miles away from Miami, but they're under the US flag. So if you think of it like that, you can then get an idea of what Madeira is in relation to Portugal. It's not a part of the Portuguese mainland, but it is part of Portugal. So the next question was, after I explained that to them where it's at, the next question that generally followed was, because just remember the country we live in, the United States, where everything in a lot of cases seem to just go down the lines of black and white, literally. So the next question was, some people were like, do they have black people over there? And other people were like, how do they treat black people over there? So I had to delve into that. Now, my wife and I were only there for 7 days. It's not like we were living there to deal with the daily interactions and so forth. So our analysis or our opinion might be somewhat, how should I put it, limited in terms of what we can say. But what I can tell you is while we were there in mainland Portugal, we did see quite a bit of people that look just like us, just meandering about their business. And I want to say a good chunk of them that we saw actually live there. You know, I did listen to a couple of the accents, and it did sound like a lot of them were Africans. I am sure quite a bit of them were from former British colonies like, say, Angola, Mozambique, probably Sao Tome and Principe. And I'm sure there were Brazils in the mix that looked just like me. So I did see quite a bit of that. We stayed at a hotel near a school there in Lisbon. And when we were walking past, I guess when school was over, and looking at the crowd of students that were coming out, there was a diversity of children. You know, we saw people that looked like us, black folks. We saw Asians. We saw people who looked like they were East Indians, or it could have been Pakistani, probably Afghani. I'm not sure, but we saw them all walking together. There was no, how should I put it? There was like no groupings, like to say, well, all the Portuguese white children would be over here, and all the, it wasn't anything like that. There was a diversity in the crowd of kids that we saw walking past us, and it was like, oh, that's pretty impressive. So we didn't feel any way. My wife and I were walking the streets. No one was looking around, like taking any extra stares, like we've never seen people with that color before. They weren't doing anything like that. We were walking into stores, walking into restaurants. People were just treating us like we were just like everybody else. No one was bothering us. No one looked at us weird. No one looked at us odd. That was in mainland Portugal. Well, when we flew over to Madeira, we noticed there were less people that looked like us that were there. I didn't see, you saw a few of us here and there and so forth, but it wasn't like every other person, and it wouldn't be expected, it wasn't like every other person you passed was a person that were our complexions, but there were people there. And again, there in Madeira, no one was looking at us like, we've never seen those people before. It wasn't anything like that at all. It was just normal walking down the street. People just passed us, smiled at us, waved at us. We asked questions, they responded. No one was acting odd or strange or like, clutching their pearls, or no one was doing anything like that at all. So we felt quite comfortable, and so forth. But as I said before, there are going to be people who are going to probably stumble into this video, and they might be right now looking up, let me see about Portugal, and all of a sudden this video pops up and they're like, wait a minute, that's a black person over there talking about Portugal. Let's listen to what they have to say. Because they look like me and I want to know a little bit more about the place. So here I am, and I'm coming in here to just go ahead and explain that. So understand that Portugal is somewhat trending right now. There are a lot of people that's learning about the country, learning more about the country, learning about the fact that they're a very welcoming country right now. And they're somewhat making it somewhat easier than other European nations to enter the country. So it's becoming rather appealing to a lot of people. But again, people like me living in the United States, living in the Caribbean, a lot of times we don't have that luxury. As you know, it's somewhat historic. I'm not saying that you don't have wealthy people among us that look like me, but we generally don't have all that disposable income. Like sometimes when I look at some of the people who are going to Portugal right now, Americans who are going there, and generally white Americans who are going there. You hear them talking about, well, I have a home in I have a home in Thailand, I have a home in Costa Rica, and I want to get a house in Portugal, or well, I have $1 billion sitting over here, and I think I want to invest it in Portugal, or I have two homes here and there, and I want to, so a lot of them tend to have that disposable income to make things happen. They can move into Portugal because they have the funds, they have the money, and so forth. Not saying everyone, not saying every white person is in that position. There's some of them who are going to have to go there and work hard just like anybody else. But people that look like me generally are not the ones speaking about Portugal in that way. So they may not be looking at it in that fashion. Now, the other thing I need to point out, which I did forget to mention, is the fact that there's also a migration of quite a bit of black folks who are leaving the United States or leaving other parts where black folks are the majority, and they're traveling to places like Africa. Because you do have places in Africa that are rather stable right now. You do have places in Africa, especially Ghana, places that are rather stable. People are doing well for themselves, and they're opening up their arms like Portugal and saying, hey, come on over. We would like you to come over and inject some brain power into the country. We'd like you to bring your experience. We'd like you to bring your money. We'd like you to bring just various things, positive things to our country and help us to build up. So obviously I'm not knocking people for doing that. That's a fantastic thing to do also. Africa can use all the help it can take right now to help to build up some of these countries and some of these other places that are down there. So that is perfectly fine. But for those people who might be looking for other places other than Africa, who look like me and thinking of somewhat of a more established, stable place, as Africa is still somewhat youthful in coming along, they may look at a place like Portugal that's a little bit more established and everything and say, hey, that's a country I wouldn't mind going to. Tell me about it. What is it really all about? So that is what we're here for, in terms of if people who look like us are interested in the country, especially a place like Madera, they will see someone who looks like them and say, hey, they've made it. They've gone there. They seem to be comfortable. They seem relaxed with it. I would like to follow that also. So if you're tuning in and you look like me and you see this video and you hear me talking about Madera, well, understand also that there are a lot of people in the Caribbean region who are of Portuguese descent. A lot of them don't know this, but a lot of them are of Portuguese descent. They look around, you look at their names, and their surnames are Portuguese. But a lot of them don't really know where the history is, and I explained that in my first video why this is the case, because a lot of people who left Madeira to travel to the Caribbean in the 1800s after the British ended slavery in their colonies, those people who left Madeira to go to the Caribbean never made it back to Madeira. So there was that cutoff. They went over, started new families in Trinidad, started new families in Jamaica, started new families in Guyana, St. Kitts and Nevis, where my roots come from, my parents come from. They started new families there, and a lot of times they just never made it back. So by about 1 or 2 generations, everyone assimilated, and Madeira was more or less just a distant memory. So people like me, 3 generations removed, my wife and I are just now discovering our Madeiran roots and our Madeiran heritage. So there are a lot of people who are from the Caribbean who have connections specifically to Madeira. So when you tune in, that will explain to you why a person like me would be interested in a place like Madeira, because it's part of who I am. It's part of who my wife is. So that's one reason that we decided to look into a place like Madeira, why we travel there, and why we decided that, this is a place that I think we can actually go to live. It's an island. So it reminds me a lot of home, where I come from, the mountains, the greenery, the types of fruits that you see, and the climate. I know it's a little bit cooler than where I come from, but the whole island experience, the whole island look, the whole island vibe is just something I'm pretty much familiar with. So, again, if you're tuning into YouTube and you're looking over at this video and you see someone like me talking about Madeira, because again, if you look at all the other videos, when you just put in Madeira and you look, you're not going to see many people like me talking about the island. But here I am. So if you're tuning in, you look like me, you're a professional in what you do. Because one of the things that I don't want to do, obviously, in every group of people, you have your riffraffs. I sure don't want to reach out to those people and say, hey, there's a place called Madera. Come on, let's go over there and just wreck the country with all of our nonsense. Okay? Don't want to encourage those groups of people. The other thing is, one of the reasons why we're also pressing ourselves to leave, so again, speaking to people that look like me, and even other people, I do realize that in the United States especially, there are a lot of Americans who are making their way to Portugal. So there's so much going on here in this country, and I don't know what people's political perspectives or political leanings may be. I really don't know, but I just know I don't care for how this country is going at all. And it has nothing to do with the current administration or anything like that, but it's just all the stuff that has happened over the past few years. Now, America has always had a real horrible underbelly to it. It's always lurking there at the surface. We all know what that is. It's always been lurking there and so forth. And it seems like in today's America, the people who come from that area or come from that underbelly are now mainstream. They feel emboldened. And because of that, it's like, it's not to say like America has not always had racism. It's not like it has not always had hatred. It's not like it hasn't always had groups of people that don't like other groups of people and so forth. That has always been going on here. We know that. But the interesting thing about it is just that now it just seems to be like it's in your face, it's out there. So there are people, white people, black people, who just want to get away from the madness that America seems to be turning into. It just seems like this place is just going to burst out in a civil war on any given day. And right now, I want to say in theory, it seems like there's a civil war. The political divide is so deep and so wide right now, and staring so much of what is going on here in this country as both sides try to stick it to each other, So I don't want to be around here when talk turns into action, where before you know it, there's violence. The last election that we had, we know how that turned out. It led to violence. It led to people dying. It led to people getting hurt. And I just feel that the next time it goes around, if things doesn't go the way that one group wants it, who knows what can happen at that point. And there's so many other things that are going on right now that I just really don't care for. So for me, I want to hightail it out of here, get my family out of here before this American empire crumbles. For those of you who can see the writing on the wall, you can pretty much see that writing on the wall, that this is a former empire. I wouldn't use the word glorious, mind you, because of course in its glory a lot of people suffered while it propped itself up as being the greatest nation on earth. But it has its good to it also. But you can just see so much is going on in the country that is just disheartening. And I just don't want to be here. There are other places in the world we can look toward, but Madera just jumped out at us because, again, once I found out that's where my ancestors came from, of course I have ancestors that came from Africa also, but the difference is just that the Madeiran side, the migration of Madeirans to the Caribbean was relatively recent. And what I mean by relatively recent, it happened in the 1800s. So it was not, in terms of history, it was not that far back. Now, if I go towards the African side, we're talking about maybe going back to as far as the 1400s, maybe the 1500s. It could be recent also, but it might be quite some time back and a little harder to kind of piece together and figure things out. So when I thought about another place I can go to, I just figured, I told my wife Madeira would be a great place. Obviously, I am from the Virgin Islands. That's a place I can go back to. My wife is from Guyana. That's a place I can go back to. My parents come from St. Kitts and Nevis. Those are places that we can go back to also. The only problem is those countries and those places are relatively close to the United States, so they tend to adopt a lot of the American culture, the American way of life, and some of it is very bad, meaning things like a gun culture and so forth. Something that over in Portugal is not worshipped and celebrated like it is over here on this side of the world. And of course, the satellite countries or the countries that are around the United States or near the United States also seem to be embroiled in all this murdering and homicides and so forth. So that's another reason why I shun some of the places we come from, because unfortunately they have adopted that whole thing with guns and whatever. Beautiful places, mind you. Tourists usually don't get themselves into anything there, but it's just the daily routine stuff that goes on with the locals who are there. That's something that's also very disheartening and very discouraging. Madeira, you don't really hear about such things. I tend to look at it like an island that is mature. It's like a mature Virgin Islands. It's a mature Jamaica where they tend to have their act together much better. And I just felt that the stability was very appealing to us. And of course, the infrastructure and everything was just more appealing to us. So again, if you're a person who look like us, and if I can just use a term, black folks just like us, and you're considering Portugal, I know a lot of you, there's quite a bit of black people from the United States who've gotten wind of Portugal. But if you're looking through and you're looking at Portugal and a video of Madeira pops up, you see a person like me, I just want you to just know that there are people like us who would be living there. There are people like us who do live there, and you won't really feel like you're out of place or anything along that line. Granted, the majority of people are not going to look like you, but the fact is, when you go there, no one is bothering you, at least from what I can tell, even from things that I've read. No one is harassing you. No one is looking at you like you're strange or odd or anything like that. And I guess you can just live your life just like everybody else there on the island. So I just wanted to basically address that just for anyone, again, who comes through and they're looking at videos about Madeira or looking at videos of Portugal, and they see someone like me popping up there talking about this place. So I just figured I'd do a video. So here I am. I just did this off the cuff, off the top of my head. There wasn't any planning. I didn't think of anything. So if I was fumbling, repeating a lot of things, please forgive me for doing that. I just figured I just wanted to put a video up like this. So this is where it's at. Anyway, before my wife goes ahead, and I think she's finished with her hair right now, let me get to bed. It's after midnight here in the eastern United States, so it's pretty late. Got to get up, got to get to work tomorrow, okay? So you guys take care. I thank you for tuning into this video. I know I babbled along. I hope you understood what I was trying to get at. So thank you for viewing. And again, you can subscribe, you can share this video, you can like, you can even dislike if you want to. But thank you for tuning in, okay? Until the next time, take care. See you guys.